All right, so we went from the Thames River to the Mystic River. We never want to overlook the middle ground. Every time we have one of these annual meetings, we always have something from middle ground. Last year, we talked about the Groton shopping and so on and so forth. Well, if you've ever driven up Flanders Road, on the right-hand side, there's a business park, Mystic Business Park, and it seems like they're always adding more buildings. Always. They're adding buildings now. And it's an obvious success story in that not only are they fully occupied, but they're building more capacity to keep that business going. And Tim Tylaska is the owner of that park. And he's also the founder of Tylaska Marine and Aerospace, which is a manufacturer of high-end racing yacht hardware, hardware for sport and military parachutes and aircraft and jet turbine components. Wow. And he's the owner and developer of the Mystic Business Park, which is, isn't that word again, incubator. It's an incubator industrial park for startup businesses. He received his bachelor's, master's, and doctorate in mechanical engineering from UConn, local boy. So, Tim, can you come up and tell your story?
So, yeah, I'm Tim Tylaska. I'm the developer of Mystic Business Park. If you've seen it, it's on 800 Flanders Road. So it is kind of an incubator business park for startup small businesses. And it started with nothing, and currently I have about 65 businesses there, and when you count everybody full and part-time, it's created about 300 jobs in the area. So it's been pretty successful. So the story, I guess, is how did I start this? And it came about is that I started my own business, and like most people, I started in my basement. Then I moved to the garage, and then I had a space in Stonington, just a little area. I got to a point where I couldn't fit in that space, and I had to do something. So I looked around Groton, Stonington, Waterford, and there was nothing that was really suitable for a business of that size. It was either too big of a building or in a bad section of town, and it needed so much work that it was just a point where I had to do something. So I decided I would try to build a building, and started in looking at how much work it was and the cost, and realized that if I built the building twice as big and rented it out, then my incremental cost was not twice as much, it was only like 1.5 times. So that was the plan. I knew nothing about it. I was kind of, an engineer who had no real experience with construction, but that wasn't gonna stop me. So I bought a piece of land. It was in Groton. It was industrial zoned. I didn't know at the time that there's no utilities, water or sewer or anything, and I didn't really know the significance of lots of rocks, but anyway, I got the piece and started in, and I wasn't gonna borrow a lot of money. I wasn't gonna borrow any money, because if this didn't work, then I'm not gonna be in debt. So the only way I could do it is I gotta use backhoe. Didn't know how to run a backhoe, but after a lot of holes in the yard, I kind of got the hang of it. So did that, and then I learned how to do concrete, and I learned how to do surveying, and on and on and on. So I started building the building, and lots of people came by and wanted to know who was this guy out there on this backhoe all day. And they were people that had a need for space themselves, and started giving me suggestions of what they were looking for and what would work. And so I started coming up with a good plan of really what the customer was looking for. And it seemed to be that people wanted a small space to start with in a way to easily grow. And so I made the buildings modular, so they were in units of about 1,000 square feet. I had all the electrical, everything very modular, so you could expand to 1 unit, 2, 3, or if things got bad, go back to 3, 2, 1. And it was really what was needed. There was nothing exactly like that out here, so I went ahead and I built the first building, and I took half, and before I was done, the whole other half was rented. And at that point, I had people wanting more space, so I built another building. And before that was done, that was all rented. So then I built another. And finally, I got to the point where I had 19 units. And I was kind of running out of space, and I found that I could buy a piece of land behind me because it was landlocked. And then I realized if I built 20 units, I had to become a public water supply. I didn't know what that meant, but it's not a good thing. So I started looking into this, and whether you have 20 people or 1,000 people, it's the same requirement. You are physically a public water supply with all the hassle and requirements and everything. So I looked into what was involved, and you know, you could get consultants for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm like, yeah, I learned how to drive the backhoe. I'll figure it out. I'll just figure it out. So being an engineer, you know, I kind of had fun. I made like science projects and got data acquisition things and measured the water table and flow rates and calculated things. And after 2 years, literally, I was a public water supply. So if you need any good water, let me know. The water is really good. I bottle it and bring it home. It's like perfect water. So anyway, so at that point, I was set to go. So I bought the next piece, and then I did the same thing. I put up another building, and that rented out, and the next, until I had 50 units. And I started to learn a lot. I now owned dump trucks, excavators, all sorts of fun toys. And I wanted to get another piece and expand, but you know, that was a big jump, because the only way I could do that was to buy the entire parcel. It was another 60 acres. And so that's what I did. I got the entire piece. And I rented out a lot of it. It's Whittle's Farm. They leased the space. I became a farm, and so I got tax write-offs for that. And you can get corn, and I think we tried watermelon, a few things. It's not an easy job to be a farmer. In fact, you have to make $2,000 a year to qualify as a farm, and that's tough to do. But anyway, so then I had the approval to put up 80 more units, so I'd have 140 units, which is getting really big. And I just went at it. Being that I'm an engineer, you know, I can do all the design, I can stamp the drawings, I do everything. So it saved a tremendous amount of cost. And as a result, I could lease the space for less than probably the going rate. And so I started talking to people that were my tenants, and I'm a tenant myself because I have my business there, and tried to find out why is it that everybody keeps flocking here. And the reason seemed to be is that my rent was about, maybe about 80% of the going rate. But my vacancy was 0. It's always been 0. In fact, there's always a waiting list. So I could try to get a premium for the rent, but I was making enough to pay the costs, and I just kept it that way. And as a result, I've never, ever had a vacancy. If anybody ever moves out, there's somebody that will literally move in that afternoon. It's that quick. So that has worked very well. The other thing that I find is that now that I have a certain size of a industrial park, I have tenants that work with other tenants. I have manufacturers that use suppliers that are there, and they use another manufacturer as a vendor, and it's almost like a community now, so everybody wants to stay there. And that's been very, very useful. So the tenants I have, they're all over the place. I have contractors, I have manufacturers, I have a baseball pitching facility that has professional baseball players there. And, I have a facility that teaches flying trapeze, complete with the whole trapeze setup. And in fact, I've made part of the lease agreement that I got unlimited trapeze lessons. And it's actually pretty fun. I have a facility that teaches Olympic trampoline. And there was some of the guys there that were truly a gold medal Olympic person that was there. A dance studio. I have just about everything you can imagine. And you know, when I start looking at the whole thing, I had opportunities to make specialized one building for glamorous places like, you know, the typical pharmaceutical or big aerospace, but the way I have it now, I have it so well diversified that I don't have to worry about one big tenant leaving and leaving a space. There's 65 different businesses there, so there's always someone to fill the space. The only thing I see now as a problem is that each business starts growing, and then they need more space, so that's why I just keep expanding. I just keep putting more and more and more, and no one ever leaves. And in fact, I'm expanding myself, but I'm kind of on the bottom of the list because I keep giving space to other people instead of myself. But that's pretty much what I've done here. Let me see if I had any other comments on it. I guess that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.